In this episode of Brainpower, we're going to take a look at generative AI automations. Hello, friends. It's Josh. Well, today we are going to take a look at how to create generative AI automations. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. There seems to be a maturation that's occurring in the marketplace as far as the way that prompts actually show up. And so, what I want to do today is show you the progression of going from a very simple prompt all the way to an automation. Now, before we do that, I want to make sure that you grab that download file. So head on over to my website and just go to this URL. And what you'll do is just scroll on down. You can see all the episodes here. It's starting to stack up. And where it says Gen AI Automations, just click the download file button. And that's going to give you a PDF that should look something like this. So in this PDF, we have a couple prompts. I have a free form prompt. There is a structured prompt in here. And then I have a couple tools that you can investigate and take a look at as you move towards creating your first automation. Okay, well, let's go ahead and jump in. So, before we, get to prompting and creating automations, I just want to give you a little bit of background on this topic. And, it's funny because having, now where are we at here? So definitely more than a year and a half or so into prompting and trying to figure out ChatGPT and building in productivity with those prompts. And along the way, there are a few that said, well, you won't have to learn how to prompt. So where are we at with that? Well, it's interesting. I'm starting to see tools out in the marketplace to where you don't have to prompt. An example would be Dolly. If you are in ChatGPT and you type in a very simple prompt, even a short sentence about the image that you want to create in Dolly, behind the scenes, ChatGPT creates this very verbose prompt that gives you an amazing image. Now, you didn't create the prompt, ChatGPT did. And you can take that prompt that it created and then modify it, tweak it, right? So there is that kind of activity happening. But, this whole conversation is about agency. It's about you being independent and understanding how these tools work so that when you do come upon a tool, whether it's currently in your ecosystem or something you're evaluating, you can decide whether you need to create your own prompt or use the vendor's prompt, whatever the case may be. Okay, so that is like the current state of prompts. So let's say you create a great prompt. What happens next? Well, you're going to want to put that thing in a library. Save it. Don't recreate the wheel. You don't want to waste time, right? And so we begin to find ourselves partnering with large language models frequently. And again, we want to either create a personal library or one for your team, right? So you can go in and share those prompts across your team. So when you have those really great wins, you can build in that productivity across the whole department. Now, what happens after we get done with the library? Well, we're just getting started because, everything comes down to workflows. Whether you have a standard operating procedure internally or your own personal workflow, whatever the case may be, believe it or not, we're going to take these prompts that are in a prompt library and put them in a workflow library. You'll see an example of that here coming up here shortly. Okay. Now, this is an interesting point or inflection point right here when it comes to workflows, because now we have to decide, okay, is there an application in the marketplace that is going to replace this workflow that I have, created with prompts? Very manual, right? So your workflow with prompts, even though the prompts are doing amazing productivity gains or creativity or problem solving, it's still somewhat of a manual process, right? So there's going to be tools that are going to be created that are going to be addressing these workflows, and then it's decision time. Should I go with this external tool that may even allow you to use your own prompts, right? Or do I want to go ahead and maintain my prompt workflow? All right, and you'll see an example of Cast Magic and that decision-making process. All right, well, if we continue, let's say that we're going for it, now we can go ahead and create an automation. And that automation is going to include various applications. In addition to ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, you name it, you can go in and leverage these large language models as part of your automation. And you'll see that here today. But what happens when we go beyond an automation? That's when we get into agents. Now, this is really interesting. So with an agent, there's this dynamic of, should it be autonomous? Should we have humans in the loop? Personally, I think it should be humans in the loop. But there are situations where agents can go ahead and create other agents, and those agents go away. And so it's a lot of possibilities for a tremendous amount of work getting done. But it all begins with a prompt. So at the end of the day, right, no matter how far we get with this prompting and with automations, it's always human, AI, human. And so just keep that in mind, that even with an automation, that's something you're going to need to check, right? Or you could be notified as far as vetting out some information that's part of that automation before the automation continues. Same thing with an agent. If an agent is going to perform a task, there could be a moment where, based upon the output from that agent, it gets validated, right? Okay, so one other thing is you have to know your craft. As a professional, knowing your craft and the nuances of your craft is going to pay huge dividends when you begin this process, because it all starts with a simple prompt. And the better that you get at writing a prompt, the more powerful your automations are going to be. But again, you have to know your craft so that when you create the prompt and it responds and gives you something back, how good is that response, right? Is it something that we can use? Is it something I need to correct? Is that multiple choice question formatted properly? How about that learning objective, right? So again, know your craft. I want to introduce you to the prompt evolution pathway. Actually, if you watched episode 14, Building a Prompt Library, go check out that episode. I introduced this methodology or illustration of how to take a prompt and go to an automation, even up to an agent. And I think this rings true. After talking with a few of my peers about this progression, this is typically how it goes down. So I already just gave you the overview of it. Let's just summarize it one more time. So you start with a prompt, and usually it's simple. Like, it's almost like a sketch pad kind of work when you're prompting for the first time and doing a task. You're going to, make some gains, make some breakthroughs. And then, once you find something that is decent, you can spend more time on the prompt and add some nuances in there and create what we call a structured prompt. Again, you'll see an illustration of that here shortly. That prompt is going to go into a library, whether it be your personal library, a team library. You'll then go into a workflow. we then go into an automation. So having your workflows vetted, having your procedures vetted is critical for before going into an automation, right? So make sure that's all done. And then if that automation is working, well, why don't we just have AI do some of the orchestration for us, or all the orchestration, and that's when we get agents. Now I have autonomous here, but really we're going to be putting some human in the loop somewhere to validate or verify the information. Then again, sometimes it could be completely autonomous if everything is working great. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead. Let's do some work now. Remember to go and get that PDF document, because I'm going to be taking some of these prompts here and we're going to copy and paste it into ChatGPT or whatever language model that you want to use here today. All right. So, well, let's get started with a prompt. Now, today, the topic is going to be a video script. All right. So you'll notice that throughout this whole entire process of creating this automation, it's all about a video script. Okay. So that's something that most people have to create at some point. Well, let's take a look at the freeform prompt. As an instructional designer, educational video producer, and food safety expert, let me zoom in so you can see this. Your task is to create a training video script on an introduction to cross-contamination. So we're doing a food safety video. This topic is crucial for professional development and directly relevant to daily life. Keep the video script to 2 minutes, maintaining an upbeat and welcoming tone. Remember, your target audience is the vibrant group of new hires between 18 and 24. Okay, one thing I do want to point out to you that's kind of cool is you'll notice that I actually have 3 roles identified up here. Call that role stacking. And to role stack, what we're doing is building in a higher probability of words associated with an instructional designer, a video producer, and a food safety expert to influence the words in the video script. Okay, so it's a little trick you can use there. All right, well, let's grab this prompt and I will get that into the clipboard here. We'll go over to ChatGPT. There we go. And today I'm going to be using GPT-4. Let me just go in and paste that in there, and let's just run it. So, one of the things that's interesting about running this particular prompt is it seems like it's going to give you, fairly decent output. Hey team, welcome to our quick and crucial guide on preventing cross-contamination. Keeping your workspace and food safe isn't just professional, it's essential, right? So it's a good start. The narrator continues, and then we get into the steps. Not too bad. This is looking pretty good. But, going back and talking about your craft, this is where we can begin to expand the prompt and get into a fully structured prompt. I know I spent years talking about educational video. I still do. You can catch me at a workshop at DevLearn, right? Doing video workshops still. I love it. And in those years of focusing in on a video, educational video, there's a formula. Now there's many different kinds of educational video, but there seems to be like a common structure. And that structure is hook, right? You got to gain attention, prime, get the brain ready to file new information into the brain, give them the content in a low cognitive load way. You then reflect, again, another opportunity to file information into long-term memory, and then a call to action at the end. Or it could be just encouragement or a good send-off at the end. That is a strong formula. Now, since we have a formula, why don't we use it, right? So we modify the prompt and we create a structured prompt to take advantage of that well played out, that well used formula for educational video. In addition, I go in and I reinforce information about the task. What are we doing? Creating educational video, adding in more detailed learning objectives in there as far as what we want covered in the video, and some more information here about our prompt or role stacking, right? Some additional rules there. The audience, so more than just 18 and 24. And there, right here under create, is the prompt or the section of the structured prompt to actually drive the structure of the script itself, the output. And typically what I do is with intent, that is where the learning objectives are going to be. Now, there is method to the madness here. For those of you that are not familiar, this is what we call a Tracy prompt. So task, role, audience, create, and intent. All right. I know most of you, though, that are watching, you're familiar with Tracy. Okay. But we may have some new folks here. All right. So let's go ahead and let's grab this structured prompt, hopefully. I've had some issues copying from Acrobat recently, so hopefully it doesn't give me too much of an issue here. So I'm going to have to take parts of it here. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to grab this first part. Let me just copy it. Let's get it over to ChatGPT. Brand new chat. Let's throw that in there. Yeah, see, something's up with the clipboard. Not a problem. Ooh, big time. Yeah, that's wild. All right, hold on. Let me go ahead and see if I can grab this from Word real quick. So just bear with me. There we go. So I had it. Oh, well, I thought I had it. Look at my Word document. Oh, boy. Well, it was sitting here at one point. Okay, so let me see if I can grab this here. It's always something, right? Well, we'll give it a go again. Let me try to grab this here. Copy. Let's see if it works. If this doesn't work for me, yeah. I mean, I could go ahead and output it as a different format. Well, you made it this far in, might as well do it. Let's just do RTF. Yeah, let me just throw this. Let me just put it on my desktop here. So while that's cranking, what you're going to notice here is, just finished it. You're going to notice that when I run this prompt, that it's going to have that format in there. Again, I'm going to have to just copy part of that. Back over to ChatGPT. Oh, there we go. Okay, now we're cooking. So I apologize. But that's just real world. Things like that happen. So, okay, now we're cooking. Again, this is going to be a food safety video script. I'm just going to go ahead and run this structured prompt. And, take the time and look at the difference between the simple prompt and then the structured prompt, and the quality of the output is definitely different when you have this structured prompt. You can see that it is following my formula here, where I have the emotional pull or YouTube style hook. Have you ever wondered how a perfectly healthy kitchen can turn into a breeding ground for bacteria overnight? Welcome to the world of cross-contamination. Buckle up. Here we go. And then we have the prime. So it's going to get your brain ready for what we're going to cover. Then we have the content. Again, illustrating what needs to be in the shot. I love it. Then we should have our reflection. Yep. And then we have our emotional push or call to action at the end. Perfect. I love that formula. All right. Well, all right, we have this great prompt. Now what? Well, now we go and take that prompt and we put it into a prompt library. So I happen to have a prompt library here. If you want the prompt library, you can just go to this URL. Just go to my website /150 prompts. There's more than 150 in there now, but we just use that same URL. Okay. So I'm using Notion here, and you can see all of these different prompts that are in here. If I just do a quick search, I can do a search for video. And here are my video prompts. There's my educational video script. Looks similar, right? So this section of this prompt was actually used in that structured prompt, right? So this right here, I had to change it a little bit, but for the most part, that was used in that structured prompt that you just ran through GPT or whatever language model you went through, okay? Now I'm using Notion. You can use Google Sheets. You can use Excel, Monday.com, whatever you have, but you want to store these prompts. Now, once you get there and you're storing these prompts, now you may want to go and do a workflow. Now, this workflow is my YouTube workflow. Here I have my YouTube title. It also does a description. And so there's the prompt. So it says YouTube title, the tool's ChatGPT. Maybe I changed the model. Maybe it's Claude. Maybe it's Gemini, right? Claude's doing amazing work, the new version in regards to the language that's being produced from Claude. So I have my model. Now here's the workflow. So we go top to bottom. I got to make a thumbnail. I'm doing that in Canva. Here's my YouTube description. Boom, prompt above. My YouTube script, another prompt. I'm going to record my A-roll in Camtasia. That's the main video. Stills, B-roll. Use Envato elements. Use Midjourney. Oh, if I'm going to use Midjourney, there's the prompt for Midjourney. You see where this is going, right? So I'm collecting all these prompts, mentioning all of these tools to get a YouTube video out the door. Audio effects, Envato. Music, Suno.ai. You got to try that tool. Amazing tool. Voiceover, Audition, 11 Labs if it's AI generated. The render is Adobe Media Encoder. Video to blog post. So once the video is created and I want to create a blog post from the transcript, I'm going to use castmagic.io. All this is part of my workflow. Now, why would I want to do this? Again, we're seeing a period where vendors are creating tools, identifying these workflows, and building, again, all that functionality into a tool. And we're going to see this for years to come, right? So you have to decide, do I want to go ahead and create my own workflow with all the prompts, or do I want to lean on a tool? Again, we're coming back to agency. Now you can decide what you want to do. All right. So let's say that you now have this workflow. How does it show up? Well, let's first talk about a tool. And the tool that I love is CastMagic. So the way that CastMagic works is that I have videos in here, these recordings. You upload an MP4 or an MP3. Here's one. I'm not going to play the audio or the video. So the video then gets transcribed. I can then go ahead and download the closed captions. So I have the transcript. I got closed captions. But here's the beauty of it. Now, here's our first automation, right? That was in the title of this episode. You're like, well, when's the automation going to happen? Well, it's here in this tool. So our automation is this AI content button, with the 3 little sparks. You're seeing those all over the place these days. And from my transcript, it's going in and creating a 1-sentence summary. I have keywords, a time-stamped overview, key session themes. It just goes on. Session quotes. If I want to go ahead and throw a quote on Instagram or Twitter or X. Key topics and bullets. A session worksheet. Yeah, it'll go in and make a worksheet from this video. That's slick. Questions, an analogy, a follow-up email from the video. So, if I'm doing some marketing and I'm sending out, hey, here's my new video, there's the associated email that goes with it. Goals and objectives from the video. Multiple choice questions from the video. There they are. In this video, what are the top, topics? There's my blog post. Okay, so I'm just going to pause for a second so you can breathe. This is where we're heading, right? To the point where tools are putting in these automations, but within this tool itself, Cast Magic, I created the prompt for the multiple choice questions. I created the prompt for the blog post. Okay. Some of those prompts are already in the tool. So there's agency. I can go ahead and be part of that decision-making process where my prompts need to be based upon the information going in and what I need to get out, right? Pretty amazing. Okay, let's continue. So now, what if I want to go ahead and control the whole entire automation myself? Now we get into a different set of tools. So I want to introduce you to a new tool. This is make.com, make.com. And Make allows you to go in and build an automation. All right, so what you're looking at here, this is called a diagram or a scenario. So I have a scenario here, the diagram of the scenario. And you can see that I'm going from Google Sheets over to ChatGPT, over to Microsoft Email. Now, this is pretty slick. And again, this is one of those reasons why you need to vet your workflows out. If you're kind of hemming and hawing or, I don't really know how we're going to go ahead and do this workflow, it's just, you're going to be wasting your time. Okay. Now, in this example, what I've done is I've gone in and I have created a Google form called Video Script Generator. This form has information that's collected that will then be placed into a prompt that's going to generate a video script that will be emailed. All right. Now, is this a workflow that I'd use day in and day out? No. It's just for illustration purposes. I'm trying to keep it really simple, but I believe this is going to show you the power of automation and what is possible. All right, so the information that we have in this form includes what is the topic, who is the audience, what are the learning objectives, and what is your email address. Super simple form, right? That form then gets collected into a Google Sheet. So you can see that we have some activity here. And I did a webinar this week, and a whole bunch of individuals came in and started using that form to check out this automation, and I can see all of their topics and whatnot in here. Okay. And so again, you build this form, you get your collection in here, and now I can go ahead and use this Google Sheet as part of the automation. All right. So the way that it starts is that you'll go into Make, and you begin with, this app right here, and then Google Sheets happens to be up at the top because that's what I was working with. But you can go in and search. There's all kinds of different applications in here. I can type in Microsoft. So there's Microsoft 365 email, there's Teams, To Do, Power BI, so on. It's pretty intense. So tons of applications in here. In addition, there's all kinds of different programmatic capabilities in here, like routing different modules and iterations and arrays and so on. So if you have any programming skills, you can really go nuts in here. Well, we're going to keep it simple and start out with Google Sheets, right? So click on Sheets, and now what do I want to do? So do I want to perform a function in Sheets? There we go. I want to watch new rows. So when that form is completed, a new row is created. That is the trigger. That's what kicks things off. So I'm going to watch new rows being created. Boom. So now I have to go ahead and set up the connection. And you got to point to the form, right? You got to set up your, hook into your Google account. So you may have to add your account in here. And then you put all of the parameters in, and then you go ahead and click OK. Now, for time's sake, I'm not going to go in and completely do all of the steps here. This is not a make.com overview. Maybe I will do that eventually. Okay. I'm just giving you the highlights here so you understand the concept of where this is headed. So what I'd like to do is go back to my finished automation and walk you through how we go from a form into a sheet, into a prompt, into an email, and then the output from the email. All right, so here we go. So now let me go back over to my completed automation and walk you through the steps. So inside the Google Sheet, I'm going to go in and point to video script generator responses. That is the name of the sheet, right? It's right here. Video script generator responses. Perfect. So it's going to go in and grab a new row at a certain interval. Currently, I have this running like every 15 minutes to check to see if there's a new row. By the way, make.com, every time that you run an operation, it goes against your account. So like the basic account where it's paid, it's like 10,000 operations. Okay. And once you get past that or to that limit, you got to re-up. Okay. So that's Google Sheet. Boom. We're going to go ahead and grab that row. Now we're going to hook into ChatGPT. This is where it gets really wild. So I know that I have cells inside the Google Sheet, right? Well, I want to take the value of those cells and I want to put it into my prompt. As an instructional designer, educational video producer, and expert in what? So back in the form, the first question was, what is the topic? We grab it from the sheet, like making bacon. And then we go over here and making bacon is part of the prompt. Pretty wild, huh? So now we are dynamically creating this prompt to create this video script based upon any topic that you want, right? And again, the prompt continues. This is actually the simple prompt. I didn't do the structured prompt in here. That would be pretty intense. I mean, I could do that, but for illustration, I really wanted to just use the simple prompt. But you can see that I have the topic, I have the learning objectives in here. All right. And I can pick my model. I'm using GP4 Turbo, right? Now, keep in mind that if you set up this automation, there is a cost to it, right? So in the background here, I'm spending money on running these automations. Now, it's not that expensive, even with Turbo, based upon like the number of tokens that's being used, pretty low. But for instance, like yesterday went through about 50 or so operations and it cost $1. My account's at $50, it's at 49. Cost $1. All right, so there is a cost to it. Now, once we get the result coming back from ChatGPT, we're going to take that result and we're going to put it into an email. Here's my email. Hello, here's your video script. Boom. There it is. So the result coming back from ChatGPT is going to be placed inside of the email. And it goes out. That's your automation. And the way that it shows up looks something like this. Yeah, it's not that formatted, but heck, it's a video script ready to rock, right? So, title Introduction to Baking the Perfect Chocolate Chip Cookies, opening scene, upbeat music playing in the background, visual quick clips of golden brown chocolate chip cookies being taken out of the oven, placed on a cooling rack. You get the idea, right? Pretty wild. So that is our automation all the way through. But what about those agents? I mentioned them. Where do they show up? Well, first, make sure you got your programming chops down like Python if you want to get into the agent game. There will be tools to make agents. They're probably already out there. I'm just not aware of them. But for instance, like a tool like Microsoft AutoGen, right here, these are agents. So agents, go in and automatically will do some work. Okay, based upon this diagram, you can see there's an agent here, and it's conversing to other agents that are doing other forms of work. You can have multi-agent conversations. You can have all kinds of different conversation patterns between these agents as you divvy up the work. Like, hey, agent, I need you to go out and find the 5 latest research papers on large language models, summarize them, and hand them back over to this primary agent, right? Pretty wild. But I want to just point something out here before I wrap this up. Remember what we started out with? A simple prompt, right? And that got into a structured prompt, and then we carried it through with an automation. Guess what's in an agent? This is the code. Now, I'm sorry if you're not a programmer. It's okay. You'll be all right. So we go down here. In this code, look at this. See that? This system message? That's a prompt. It's in there. So whether you are creating a simple prompt to, oh, hold on. There we go. Sorry. I was explaining this agent concept. I didn't realize I didn't have the screen up. I was just riffing. So here's the agents and the way that they interact. And here's the code. Sorry. Right. So there's a prompt sitting there in the code. So we've gone all the way from a simple prompt to a structured prompt to putting it into a library to having a workflow and then deciding, hey, is there a tool out there that's going to do that workflow for me? And if so, can I use my own prompts or not? All right. Then we built an automation going from a Google Sheet. The sheet information went into ChatGPT. The result went into an email. And then you can even take that automation in because it's vetted out and make an agent do that work. Pretty amazing. Wow, this was a long one. I appreciate it if you stuck with me throughout this whole entire episode of Brainpower. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Take care.